Welcome to Live Free. I'm Angela K. Austin. Together, we'll discuss books, we'll explore the world, and we'll do it with some of my closest friends. And hopefully, we'll make new ones along the way.
Hey everybody, this is Angela K. Austin, and today I'm here with Renee Daniel Flagler. Say hi to everybody, Renee.
Hey, how y'all doing?
All right. So many guys out there. I mean, all of us, we do this circuit. We go from event to event to event. And at one of those many events, I met Miss Renee here. And she does not remember me. You know, we know this. But it didn't matter to me.
So that was about 5 years ago.
It was 5 years ago. But I remember her. I have a photograph, and if I can find that sucker, I'm going to put it in this post. But I remember her so well because, you know, I think that this is one of the things that I say to people so often. You never know how somebody will be influenced by you, what you say, what you do, you know, whatever it is. And when I met Miss Renee, she was talking about the business behind books. She was just rattling off this stuff like, you know, we should do this and we should do that. And she had no idea that I was sitting there like a little sponge, soaking it all up like, I got you. I'm gonna do all these things. But when I decided to do this channel, you know, you guys have heard me say this before, I had my wish list. And so I reached out to Miss Renee and was like, would you mind joining me on my show? And here we are. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, girl, hey.
So for people who are watching this show, listening to this podcast, let's start by telling people who Renee Daniel Flagler is. And we're going to get into her books and stuff later, but I want you guys to know a little bit about who this woman is and, you know, what she writes, you know, why she writes, and then we're going to introduce you to some of her work that she's got out there. So tell everybody who you are, ma'am.
Oh my goodness, I am a lot of things. First of all, I'm a child of God. There's some people who call me everything but I am a child of God. I am an author, an adjunct professor. I got my MFA in creative writing, and I taught at the same school that I got my MFA, and I've also served as visiting professor at other universities, teaching writing. I'm a teaching artist. I've taught writing and developed writing curriculum in the public school system for the Department of Education in New York City from K through 12 and across Long Island. I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a cool girlfriend from a girlfriend. And I'm also the executive director for Girls Inc. of Long Island, the proud executive director for Girls Inc. of Long Island. So, which is a nonprofit organization, youth serving organization that we work with young girls between the ages of 5 and 18. Amazing work programs, amazing programs, and we advocate for girls' rights and gender equity. And I'm a big community person. I do a lot of work in my community. I'm involved with a lot of community and civic organizations. I'm a philanthropist. I don't have a whole lot of money, but I give back from what I got. So, and I love I love my community work. I love giving back to organizations and to causes and to people. I'm on the board of directors for a few organizations. And lastly, I started a scholarship program about 3 years ago. So it's 2 scholarships because my 2 passions, one is writing and the other one is, you know, working with youth and empowering youth and, you know, empowering women and people to pursue their passions. One of the scholarships is for students who are interested in pursuing careers in writing. So if they want to go to college for journalism, you know become an editor, whatever it is, it's a scholarship for that. And the other one is for students who are avid community folk, like, you know, and they just have to let me know what empowerment means to them.
You know, I have actually recently, I'd say in the last 5 years, I started a scholarship myself for some of the community colleges and historically Black colleges that are here in Memphis. And it's something that I absolutely, you know, love because it does make me feel like I'm giving something back to the next person who is trying to, you know, figure out what their path is, right? It's like an awesome thing. But let's talk a little bit about in general, about what you write. because I want to get to some of the books, you know, especially like some of your most recent releases a little bit later. But tell us, you know, what inspired you? I mean, you have your MFA in creative writing, but what inspired you to start writing? You know, what made you put that first book out there? Why did you take this journey, you know, and start publishing?
So writing has always been in my blood. Writing and reading. I've started. I think every writer starts out as an avid reader. And my first memory, like I've had to tell the story a couple of times, so I kind of almost have it down pat. But it really started with a love for words. And I think my first memory of like really indulging this love of words is when I was in the second grade and I memorized an entire book. I memorized an entire book, and then I participated in a storytelling contest and won. Like the whole book. Who does that? And then I went on to represent my school's district in a storytelling contest. I didn't win at that level, but I was excited. I've always been an avid reader. I would be that little girl in my room, you know, looking in the mirror, making up stories, talking to fake audiences. English was one of my favorite subjects, and I didn't even realize it. I just liked being able to make up stories and things like that. Yeah, I was always doing something. My mother would be like, "Sit down and shut up." So I was always, you know, creating and imagining and all of that stuff. And then fast forward, I think I wrote poetry and all kinds of stuff. Then I went to, my bachelor's is in communication. So in that, I explored journalism. I worked as a freelance journalist for many years. I still dabble in that and do a couple of articles and stuff like that every now and then. But I used to have like a relationship column. I used to write for business. I wrote business book reviews. I wrote for publications like Black Enterprise and the Network Journal. I went to school for communications, but I wrote everything there's possibly is to write in communications. I went to a film school. My first master's is actually in film school, and I was writing screenplays when I was there. And then I went into marketing full-time as a career, and as a marketing person, I wrote everything there, from commercials to websites. I used to get paid to write obituaries. People I didn't even know. I just made them sound so wonderful and compelling, you know. So I wrote everything there is to write. Like I have everything copywritten, and never really realized that I had this passion for writing. I just did it because I enjoyed it. I, you know, created opportunities to do it. I started newsletters in my profession and my professional positions as a marketing professional, and and that led to all kinds of other writing opportunities. But creative writing has always been my favorite. I've always loved that escape. I would steal my older sister's books, and I read all the V.C. Andrews, and, you know, all going back to the first couple of books that came out, the Black Explosion and Terry McMillan, and all before that, the, you know, Toni Morrison's and the James Baldwin, you know, Iceberg Slips, all of that stuff, like all leading up to, you know, this expansion of commercial fiction. And I started writing like just on my own, just enjoying it. Not to get it published, wasn't thinking about getting books published, wasn't thinking about becoming an author. I just wrote because I enjoyed writing. So if I came home and had a bad day, my characters had a bad day. If I came home and had a good day, my characters had a good day. It was just writing. About, I would say around 2003, 2004, when I was deep in the beauty of, you know, all those Black books coming out, and Eric Jerome Dickey on the scene, and Mary B. Morrison, and all of that stuff. I was working on one of my books that I had literally been working on for a long time, because like I said, I didn't have a deadline. It was just something I did because I enjoyed doing it. And I was working at this, one of my marketing jobs, and I met a woman who was with a publishing company, but it was like a medical, the whole different side of publishing. So like medical publishers. She worked for one of the medical publications, and she was an editor. We met at a company picnic. We both, you know, we both talked about having this great relationship with Black books and books in general, and reading everything. We both had this just voracious love of reading and read a lot of the same books. So we just became like fast friends. And I was telling her one day about, you know, the fact that I love to write, and I had, you know, several books like in different stages, you know, like beginning, a couple of chapters in, some that were like 10 chapters in, 60 pages, all of this stuff, but I just enjoy doing it. So she said to me one day, she was like, well, I would love to read something that you have. I was like, all right, you know, I'll bring you a little something. So I bought her like 150 pages of my first book. So she came back to work a week later. She was like, you got a marketable page turner on your hand. You need to do something with it. And I was like, you think? I had simultaneously, I had gotten laid off from a couple of jobs because marketing and advertising were the worst industries to be in after 9/11. It was like layoff after layoff. It's the first departments that get cut. They cut the marketing budget, they cut the advertising budget. You're the first to go out the door. So I was on that job, hadn't been on that job for a year yet or whatever. And then they started experiencing cuts. But she had kind of reinvigorated that whole thing for writing. And then I ended up getting laid off from that job. But I said to God, like, Lord, if writing is really something that I should be doing, please give me the space, the time, and the opportunity. So I got laid off again. But this time was different than the previous layoffs. I was actually excited about it because I was like reinvigorated, and I was like, I know exactly what I'm going to do with my time. I'm going to get this book finished. I'm going to get this book out. I'm going to start a whole new path, and which I did. So the day I got laid off, I called my husband, and I was like, guess what? He was like, what? I was like, I got laid off.
Like, why are we excited about that? Wait, yeah.
That's a good thing. And I was like, yes, because I know exactly what I want to do. So that was 2004. And several months later, I found out that I was expecting, but several months later, my book came out in December and my baby came out in November. And I've been on this path ever since.
Like two babies. You know,
Book and a baby.
You know, it's so funny though, because everything that you just laid out, you know, like I just recently interviewed Rihanna Mallory, and, you know, we were talking about just the dynamic nature of people who take on self-publishing, right? It's like, or, you know, who take on kind of jumping out into creating anything, you know, because you just always have so many things going on. You're always creating and you're always just growing. I mean, like you know, my master's is in marketing, my undergrad is in communications, and I'm going back to get another master's in creative writing. So, you know, but it's just one of those things where you're kind of always growing and changing and looking at ways to keep doing. But what, you know, it's that thing of, you know, like you know, being in the world of marketing, or just in general, the world is so crazy right now. There's so many people who've been laid off. You know, I've been laid off like 3 times in my career because, like you said, everybody I know who's in human resources or marketing, they've been laid off in some way, because when companies collapse, when they start shrinking down, they're like, oh, we don't need 3 marketing people. 1 person can do it all, you know. And so,
I've been the person that was left as the one person that had to take up 3 marketing people's jobs.
Yeah, and it's like, good Lord, people, you gotta have some time to breathe and think. If you just want to like make somebody crack up, you know, yeah, let them do everything.
Right.
But it's just that kind of a thing, and then being able to kind of like continue to create and do something, you know, in the midst of all that kind of chaos. So, yeah, you know, like you say, you prayed and you asked for that opportunity, you know, and the opportunity may have come in a different form than you know, and you may have originally
laid off. I was expecting to lose my money. Yeah.
But you still had the opportunity, you know, and that's one of the things that, you know, I hope that people who are listening and people who are watching, they take away from it, you know, is take advantage, you know, of those changes, you know, in your life, and continue to, you know, and it can be so hard because, you know, right now things are so kind of like just really chaotic in our world, you know.
I mean, what else can happen? I mean,
yeah, right. You know, it's good. So take advantage of those opportunities to try to feed whatever your creative energy is. And you never know how it might impact somebody else who is looking for something, you know, because I talk to a lot of my friends all the time. There's an organization here that I'm a part of that I work with a lot, the Memphis Black Arts Association. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when all of this stuff first started happening in our worlds, they were like, oh, we need to create some messaging to encourage people to continue to create in this time. You just never know what people may need, you know, like a little bit of a getaway, a little bit of a reprieve from the world around them. Movies, books, music, those are some great ways, you know, to just kind of like forget what's going on. So like with me, when I first started writing, one of the things that I was looking for is I was looking for books that I thought like showed the different sides of women of color, you know, people of color, where we were kind of on the pages. So when you put that first book out there, what was your first book? What did you want to share? What was that book?
So the first book, my first book was Mountain High Valley Low. That's the one I birthed with my baby.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really a story, like the title was very indicative of the journey of the characters. It was really about just the ups and downs and highs and lows of life. Like one thing, and I had experienced those. I had, going on my career, going like this, hitting 9/11, losing my job, getting another job, losing my job, getting another job. This opportunity comes out. So it was just such a series of highs and lows. And some of the highs were extremely high and some of the lows were extremely low. We all been through so much or whatever. But I was also, and I've always been like this. I've also been an advocate for presenting people of color in a light where we're not normally presented in, which is one of the reasons I actually started writing romance as well. I wanted to join the romance game, but I didn't want, and we got all kinds of folks, right? So in my family, I'm a baby of 6. Each one of us is different, and we all, whatever. So we're such a beautiful tapestry of people from skin color to talent to levels of ratchetness to ratchet to bougie and everything in between. And I always felt that we had always been unfairly depicted and very stereotypically depicted in the media. And I wanted to present a different perspective. I wanted to present what I knew existed. Like I knew some of that, yes, there's some, elements of truth and all of that, but what didn't get enough spotlight are, the women like us who work professional jobs and who have certain types of goals and aspirations. And, every Black woman is not a baby mama. And even if you do have a baby daddy, there's such a negative connotation with being a baby mama. Like, okay, you could be a mama, a great mama, and have, goals and aspirations and careers and not be married to, your husband and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to present a different side, a different perspective. I wanted to, we've always heard if you don't like the stories that's out there, write your own story. So I wanted to add to the dialogue. I wanted to add to the narrative of this is also what it's like to be a Black woman, a Black man, a Black person, part of the Black culture, part of the Black community, and so on and so forth. So it was important for me for those characters in that first book to kind of reflect that. So the girl was a marketing executive, and the guy was starting out with a technology company, and it was doing well. And he had a dream of one day being able to, and this is a dream that I had myself, one day being able to take this long trip, like to go to Europe and like find a home base in London, and then just like for 3 months be able to trek all across that side of the world, and then come home and whatever, but having had that experience. So whether he's got a part-time job or whether he saved up the money to do it, which he did actually in that particular book, but he was able to go and travel and see the world from over there. But he started this relationship before he went, and it kind of started to get a little serious. So he let her know, when I come back, I'm coming back for you. And she's like, what? And it was she was going through a series of her own ups and downs and things like that. So it really is. It has relationships in there, and has a little bit of scandal and conflict, and internal conflict and external conflict, and it really was about their particular journey of ups and downs and everything that they went through. But it was like the short of it is like finding the right man, but at the wrong time.
And it's so funny that you say that, because I tell people that I feel more comfortable describing myself as an author of women's fiction, but I do also write a little bit of romance, or at least in my women's fiction, there's a romance thread, right?
Right.
And I tell people that because it's like you just said, finding the right person at the wrong time. I think so many of us do that in real life.
Yeah.
You find the wrong person at the right time, the right person at the wrong time. It's just like sometimes the stars are not aligning as you would like for them to. And so, like, what happens in that situation? Like, what are people doing? Do they realize it?
I like to throw what ifs in it. So what if this?
Exactly, right? Exactly. So, what if that happened? What would you do? Would you wait for that person to come back? Or would you like go find the next person? It's like, I love that kind of realism, because that's really what I like to do in my books. And, it's like when you said that you wrote a relationship column, I wanted to jump back and talk about that a little bit. But then when you described your first book, it ties in so much to that. And we'll talk more about your books, but a relationship column, where was that?
I don't know how that came about, but it was a lot of fun. It was an online magazine, and I wrote the relationship column. So I did all kinds of stories, maximizing your singleness. If you're single, this is how you have a good time being single. And this is how you maximize. You don't spend your time sitting around waiting for the next man to come. That's time and opportunity. Is it something you always wanted to do? Something you always wanted to try? Well, you don't have to worry about a significant other, making time for them. So you make time for the things you really want to do in life. And also work on being the best you, so that when that person comes along, like it could be a great relationship, and not about you fixing your life by getting with somebody else that you think is going to fix it. And so all kinds of cool advice, cool dates, erotic dates. I always have a huge imagination. What are 5 most interesting first dates ever? So instead of just going to, dinner and a movie, and some of this stuff I actually played out in some of my romance books. I write romance as Nikki Knight. But instead of just going to dinner and movie, maybe going to an amusement park, maybe having a picnic, maybe, there's all kinds of real fun things you could do. Like now they've got this, axe throwing. I mean, maybe not in COVID, but they've got axe throwing and stuff like that. I mean, that sounds like it might be fun to go axe throwing. You might learn something about each other with the way you throw those axes. So, I would write all kinds of really just interesting stuff, and then just talk about love. Because when you think about it, there's 2 things that people are always running after, trying to get, want in their lives, desire, want to capture, all that great stuff. And that's love and money. People are always either going into it, going out of it, pursuing it. It's 2 things that drive a lot of human interaction.
Yeah. Love and money. That's very true. That's just so interesting. When you said that, I was like, relationship manager. And, the thing about it too, like I say, you write romance under Nikki Knight. The thing about it is that when you write romance, when I'm writing, and I don't know how you do your outlines or set up your characters or whatnot, but I remember this old school technique people used to tell us to do, which is kind of make these concentric circles, and see where your characters kind of overlap, where they push and pull from each other. And so much of that for me was, it was like building out these relationships. Of course, this person is, loves this person hates this is where they're going to connect, and this is where they're going to ebb and flow, and how they can feed each other and how they can pull away from each other, all these things. Yeah. So I that makes me so curious, being writing a relationship column and how that plays out in some of your romance. I mean, that just has me super curious right now. Now I just want to, and I know I can't be dwelling on that. I don't have you all day, but that is so super curious to me. I mean, I would love to hear more about that though.
There's an article I wrote about emotional cheating, how cheating starts way before physical interaction.
Yeah.
That's some good stuff for a book, because you can really play with that emotional tension and stuff like that in the storyline.
Oh, that is some good one there, because I talk to people about that all the time. It's like emotional cheating is a real thing, people. Don't tell me you got a work wife, a work husband. What is that? I just don't know. But let me ask you, who are, now we talked a little bit before we started recording about Miss Bev, but who are some of the people who inspired you? You saw an opening and you wanted to plug that with some of the books that you put out, but who are some of the people that you read who made you want to take that leap and join the game?
Classics like Edgar Allan Poe, right? I'm the true book nerd, right? So
I love some Poe, but he was always so
dark as hell.
Yeah.
the way that man can spin together a story, a short story, a poem, just the way he uses words is just so.
It was amazing. Yeah. But let me ask, what was the poem that he had? I can only remember one line of it, but I swear to you, I read that poem, and I was like, wait, because I was very young when I read it. It had to be like high school.
Maybe The Raven. That's one of the famous ones.
Is it The Raven? I don't know, but it was like I remember a line of it, and the line was something about becoming worm bait when he was buried or died. I cannot remember it, but I remember that line about worm bait. And I swear to you, when I read that line in the poem, I was like, wait, worms? They get into they get in your coffin? I was like, wait. I don't know if I want to be buried. I remember that poem struck me so hard when I read it that I was like, wait, what happens when you die? I was so young when I read that poem, but I've always been a book nerd, and I love poetry, and I started out writing poetry before I even thought about writing full-length novels. So he was just one of those people that,
The more I've gotten into writing them, and because I'm always on a journey to continuously develop my craft. That's why I went back to school to get a master's in MFA. It was an amazing project for me, because it was an amazing journey for me. And my entire group from our MFA program is still cool. Like, we still talk, the professors and everything. We still engage, and we try to get together for dinner and stuff like that every time. It was an amazing experience for me. I actually won the department's award for creative writing. I love it. Like, I mean, and I have my categories. Like, so I love literary fiction. And I love things like, the nerd in me loves Poe. I went to a bookstore and I saw the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe. And you would have thought that I won, like, I was like the 1,000th customer, and I won, like, I was like, woo, look at that, but then I also love, like, Eric Jerome Dickey, Toni Morrison, Beverly Jenkins, Brenda Jackson, oh my God, Jesmyn Ward. Her books are magical to me. I absolutely love her. I love stories from my friends, like Tiffany L. Warren, Rashonda Tate Billingsley, Victoria Christopher Murray. I love works of like Jamaica Kincaid, poetry from like Terrence Hayes, Nikki Giovanni. So it runs the gamut. I read like everything,
Yeah. I love me some Rashonda Tate Billingsley. I love a lot of those people you named. And, she was another person that I saw speak at a couple of conferences. She's on my wish list too. Hey, Rashonda. But just don't say anything when you get my email. But it's like, these people are people who influence me too. Like when I interviewed Ms. Bev, and she called her work edutainment. And, I'm somebody who, I grew up in the southern part of the States, which is where I'm currently living. But one of the things that I tell people all the time is that I think that our culture and our environments, of course, they impact our writing. But it's like when you're somebody like me who I love poetry, love books, love reading. When you read works by some of these people and they take you to another place, and then you're like, oh, well, and it's like, you love the experience and you hate when you read the last page of the book. You're like,
Well, you never read a page and you got to the last page and you just wanted to turn over and start all over again?
Yes, and sometimes you have to. Or you go back, or what I do is like, it's so bad, but sometimes I go back and I read my favorite sections of the book. So it's like, if you look at something like my Kindle, and I have like the little highlighted parts.
Yeah.
Well, people will be like, what is wrong with you? But it's like sometimes it's just people can really make something so powerful and can touch you in such a way that it just, I don't know.
Words. I have marked in the words where I'm reading and the sentence was either so powerful or so just like beautifully crafted. I'm like, she said that, like, in a way that, that works so beautifully in writing. And that's another reason why I really enjoy teaching writing. I love teaching classes like make your dialogue work for you, right? So what can you do with dialogue? You can say things, of course, and just say what the character said, but there's so many ways to be creative in how you make the character communicate, from dialogue to non-dialogue to expressions to how the person says something, and it's just I got a thing for words.
And that was not one of the questions I had on my list, but now that you've mentioned it again, when it comes to your teaching, are you only teaching at the university, or do you teach online? Do you have, seminars and stuff that people could sign up for so that they could learn?
I've done both. I've taught at universities, College of New Rochelle. I've done business professor stints at like Medgar Evers College. Can't think of the other school, but mostly those two. But I did a storytelling class, writing classes. I've done like writers in residence programs at libraries. I've done a couple of series of writing sessions at like the Langston Hughes Library in Queens and Corona. So it really depends. I've also taught, like I said, in the public school system through some of the nonprofit organizations that I work with in developing curriculum and going in and teaching writing residencies that can last anywhere from 10 weeks to 30 weeks. Sometimes we were in the school district for the entire school year. Sometimes we were there for like a 12-week residency, and we taught everything from elementary to high school. So basically, I have literally taught writing from ages like 5 to 80.
Okay. What about for us people not in Long Island?
Actually, so if there's enough interest, I will absolutely do one online. Absolutely do one online.
I think it would be really great because, the thing about so many of us, when we decide to do the indie writing thing, because we do so much of it by ourselves and, we can't afford this, can't afford that, we kind of like, we do it and we learn as we're doing. And so to be able to find resources that, we can do, especially in this time that
I don't charge much for my school,
and
a certain amount of people, and that way I can keep the cost down.
Yes, exactly. So we should champion for that. So you guys can hear my voice or see this video, leave a comment, and let Renee know if you would be interested in something like that, because, this is the thing that we could do from our homes. We could do it from our laptops and our desktops. We could do it from our phones. So, let her know, if you would be interested and what classes you would like to see her teach. Because when I first started in this, that was really one of the things. I have an undergraduate degree in communications and a master's in marketing, but it's like when I first started this whole game, really a lot of what I learned was from authors such as yourself. I would attend the conferences. I would write down everything that you guys said. When I mentioned Rashonda Tate Billingsley, I remember sitting in on something she did about public relations and press and sending out press releases, and so, and I don't know if she's still doing her Brown Girls Publishing. I need to check on that, but.
One of my books is published on the Brown Girls Publishing. We actually just got option for film. We just secured a film deal.
Okay, so we got to make sure we talk about that more when we get to those books, because that was one of the things that I loved when I saw her, that she started that, because I was like, this is what I'm talking about is, people who have smashed the game and who have been elevated, people who are elevating others and not allowing it to just kind of, I don't want to say end with them, but they're making space for other people. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to end like that. No.
It's not, and that's like.
No reader ever said, oh, I just finished the book. I'm done for the year.
It's more like, oh, I just finished that book in 2 days. What I mean? So it's like, so I love that she was doing that.
Yep. So I have, I've been with several publishers. My first 3 books came out, it was self-published. Then I was picked up by a small press, Sitting Bull, and 2 books came out under Sitting Bull. And then and these are all under Renee Daniel Flagler. And then I did Society Wise with Brown Girls. And then after that, I got the deal with Harlequin under Nikki Knight. So I did 8 books with Harlequin. I'm actually just submitted my 9th book with Harlequin, and book 10 is due by the end of the year. And then fortunately, we're negotiating my new contract. So there'll be more books coming under Harlequin. And my agent was shopping my other work, and I decided I hadn't done self-publishing in a long time.
Mhm.
My last self-published book was probably 2012.
Okay.
So it's been a long time. Even I've, plenty of books out since then, but I wanted to get back into the game. I have a lot of respect for self-publishing. It's where I started. I used to do an annual event called the Self-Publishing Symposium. Being in New York, we have the entire publishing industry at our disposal. So I would bring out distributors, editors, agents, marketing folks, people from all across the publishing industry to teach independent authors about the industry, about the business, best practices, and things like that. That changed drastically when we went from printing books mostly to digital. It just literally changed the whole market, and it didn't make the event. The content is still very worthwhile, but producing the event became very costly because we used to have a lot of like print sponsors and all of that stuff, and the digital folks weren't sponsoring anything. But like this, so Second Wives Club is my first self-published book since 2012. It's not my first book since 2012, but it's the first self-published since 2012.
Yeah, and I know because when I was doing the research for this interview, of course, I was looking at Second Wives Club, and I don't know why I didn't think to check Nikki Knightley, because that's when you rock your hat, right? Because then I see I know, like I say, she does not remember me, guys who are watching this, but I remember this one time. I think we were at some event, and you were like coming up an escalator or off an escalator, and you had the hat rocking. I was like, yes.
That's Nikki. She wears a hat sometimes.
Yeah, it was like, Nikki, okay, yeah, so when you started doing your thing, even with Harlequin, because, so many people who are self-published, and I actually have some publishers that I'm going to be interviewing soon on this channel as well, so this is so great. Tell us a little bit about what it felt like when you did get that deal with Harlequin initially.
That was amazing, because that was the biggest publisher I've ever dealt with. And fortunately, it's been 5 years and I'm still with Harlequin.
Yes.
So they've been good to me. That's a good thing. They came to me, and so it was interesting because I was at a conference. I think it was either RWA or RSJ. It was one of the romance conferences. And I was actually scheduled to meet with the editor, my editor, Glenda Howard, for like a pitch session for ideas that I had for romance. I had already had some ideas, and I was like, I really want to get into the romance game. I'm going to continue to write women's fiction and, what I write, but I really wanted to also get into romance because I also felt that Black love wasn't getting a fair play in media. I'm just hit my 25th year anniversary, and my boo's the bomb. And it's like, we don't see the bomb boos, the Black bomb boos in the news and I'm like, all of my girlfriends, one girlfriend that just celebrated 27 years, one just celebrated 20 years. And it's like, that doesn't get any play. So I wanted to, have an opportunity to do that. But anyway, so I went to, just before my pitch, like I'm really good friends with Letitia Lovely, who also writes romance as Zuri Day. And Glenda asked her, does Renee write fiction? And she was like, does Renee write romance? And she was like, as a matter of fact, she does. So then later on that day, I actually met with her and we talked or whatever. And by the time we came back, a couple of weeks after we came back from that conference, she reached out to me and she was like, I'd love to see, some of your ideas and so on and so forth. And that was the start of it. I sent her first couple of chapters of the book that I was working on. I sent her my proposal and everything. She loved it. And they started out by offering me a 2-book deal. So the first book was Her Chance at Love, the Barrington series. It's about 3 brothers. Each brother has their own story. And that book came out in like the fall of 2015. And we've been rocking ever since. They first offered me a 2-book deal. Apparently they liked what they saw. And then they came back and offered me a 6-book deal. So I did those 6 books. And then they unfortunately shut down the Kamani line. And so what they offered me was the opportunity to transfer to their Desire line, a different line. So, we went through a couple of storylines, and then they liked what I submitted, and they liked my work and my writing. So they offered me another 2-book deal on the Desire line. And so now that that's almost over, we're in talks for the next book deal. So it's been a good run with that. I just realized, I'm like, oh, I've been with them for 5 years. That's a good little run.
That's a good run. But, but that actually, because, we talk about that a lot, in the self-pub world about imprints that have closed, and then how there's kind of like that compressing of the market. And so they're like, I don't want to say fewer and fewer places, but because publishers had developed those lines specifically for different types of genres and different audiences, it's really good to know that when Kamani was closed, that you shifted over to Desire, that they looked for an opportunity of how to continue that relationship. Yeah, and and Letitia Lovely, hey Letitia, you're on my list too, girl. But because I saw Letitia speak once about her event with what her adventures at, was it Black Expo, and how she was down to her last book and didn't want to give it away and all that, and so she spoke at a book club here in Memphis. It's called Rare. And I cannot remember what the acronym stands for, but I saw her speak at that event. So, hey, Letitia. But so that leads me to a question. What is, out of all the work that you have done, what is your favorite book that you've put out there? Whether it be under, Nikki Knight, whether it's under, Harlequin, whether it's, what do you think is the book that everybody should pick up? And tell us why. Where should people start?
This is my favorite. But I don't know if I really, okay, so with Renee Daniel Flagler books, I honestly don't know if I have a favorite, because I like each one for different reasons.
Okay.
Came from a different place, from different inspiration. Mountain High, Valley Low was my first. That's my baby. That's my first baby. So like that holds a special place in my heart. The follow-up to that, In Her Mind, is really special to me because it's strictly written by reader demand. I thought I was done with those characters. And I got emails and calls and texts and all kinds of stuff saying, we want more, what's going on with these characters, what's next. And so I announced, okay, I'm going to work on a sequel, and people were excited. And I was excited because Mountain High Valley was my first book. I told my husband, I just want to sell one book. It sold a lot more than one book. So I was just ecstatic. I was new. And the fact that people wanted more from that, I was like, okay, give the people what they want. So it wasn't an easy book to write because I thought I was finished with those characters, and I'm not crazy about sequels. But that's special to me because it didn't originate from me having an idea. It originated from people saying, we want more. And I was floored by that. And I was like, okay, I'm good more. In Her Mind, Misguided was so much fun because it started in a book class. So Eric Jerome Dickey and Barbara Rogan, 2 authors I have a lot of respect for, both told me, never stop honing your craft. So I took a class, and in that class, Barbara Rogan was the teacher. And she's like a J.D. Robb and all of that stuff. I don't know if she's really writing anymore, but she's the type of author who has written fiction for years, and her books have been translated into like 8 different languages and all of that stuff. And she was conducting a writing course at a local university. And she told us to go home and come back with a compelling first sentence. I came home and came back with a compelling first sentence, and everybody in the class was like, I want to read that book. So that became Misguided. Still Raging Blue and Still Raging, I felt myself grow and change. My first 3 books were down. I felt myself grow and change. I saw my writing change. I felt different in the process. Those 2 books came from a different part of me, a more developed part of me as a writer. Victoria, she's my friend, but she's also a writer that I admire. And when she said to me, Mountain High Valley Low was my favorite book of yours until I read Raging Blue, I was just like, what? I did something special with that book. So that has a special place for me. And that was another one where I was like, what's up with the sequel? And I was like, there is no sequel, but we ended up doing a sequel. And then society-wise, it was like I had gone to a different place writing. I developed even more. The stories that I desired to write had changed and it looked different. And I was looking at society in a different way. You know, it was years before I had started writing. So every book is like a representation of a different me, a new me, and looking at the world in a different way, bringing in content and imagining content in a different way. But Society-Wise is 4 couples who are enamored with the idea of keeping up with appearances, but each couple really have a lot going on behind the scenes that they not only do they want to keep it from the public, but they want to keep it from each other, so that they can, appear to be, still the it couple and keeping up with the Joneses and all of that other stuff. And there was some serious issues that they were dealing with behind the scenes, like addiction, alcoholism, financial ruin, infidelity, and just, domestic abuse. But it's really a story about how these 4 women who are very unlikely friends, because they would not have been friends if it wasn't for their husbands being close, and how they kind of came together to support themselves. But it's a lot of drama.
I like when books, kind of tackle some of these things, because you never know what people are going through. People can just be like, they can really understand that they're not necessarily alone.
Right. You can relate. Like this is some real stuff. Like you deal with this type of stuff. And I think I'm not a materialistic person. I'm not a superficial person, but I think we all want to be, at least appear to be all right, doing well, this, whatever. So I don't care how non-superficial you are or not materialistic you are or whatever. We all, in some way, shape, or form, try to keep up appearances.
We do.
So the situations in these books are much deeper and, more calculated, but we can all relate to that on some level.
We can. So that's why that one popped on my radar. So I really gotta, go ahead and try to get that one and finish that, because that's gonna be, I don't know. I like to keep up with all of my people, see what you guys are putting out there. I tell you, I'm in the process of moving. So Kendall has been my best friend, but my TBR list, it's like it's not realistic right now. It's like
it's a little sick for me right now.
Yeah, I think it's kind of got like, it's probably on like a 2-year road. I don't understand.
And I still buy books. I stay buying books.
Yeah, it's like every time I go and I follow one person, then somebody talks about somebody else, so then you go down a rabbit hole, and then you start like seeing all these other things, because
that's that book addiction. Book lovers. And it's like, let me get it now because I don't want to miss out on it. I don't want to forget it later on. So then you got all these books in your Kindle that you haven't read yet.
I know. It's like, I really don't want to be left out. It's like, what book are y'all talking about? Wait, I haven't read that yet. And it's like, especially because when, when I have the ability to meet people, like yourself, Lutisha, Rashonda, all these people, Miss Bev, then it's almost like, because now you're like, okay, now I've met them. And, now I got books so I can go into their groups, because I got into Miss Bev's spoiler group. I was like, ooh, let me in here, like I can't be left out of the conversation. Now you got to buy all the books so you can have all the conversations. So it's just hilarious. At this point, we're going to figure something out for Angela, because Angela cannot read all these books. We hinted to it a little bit, especially because of your writing classes and all of that. But are there any words of wisdom that you can share with people who are trying to get into the game, people who are, are self-publishing now, who hope to be with large publishers like you are with Harlequin? Is there anything you can share with people who may be listening or watching to help them stay inspired?
So I guess from experience, this is my 15th year in this industry. And from the many people that I've come across, what I've learned in my own process, what I've learned through my MFA programs, and just, advice, and I'm always taking on, just stay humble. Number one, I'll give you a couple of things. Number one, you got to stay humble. I've seen a lot of people come and go, and a lot of times it's because they weren't humble. And after a while, people get sick of you, and they don't want to be bothered with you. They don't even want to give you book deals because they don't want to deal with you. Staying humble. Number two, not giving up. It's not an overnight thing. It's not an overnight industry. Books take time to sell. Brands take time to build. You don't put out your first book and become a super hit and hit the New York Times bestseller list and and stuff like that. I know people who've been in the game for 20 years and still haven't hit the New York Times bestseller list or whatever, but they still have like massive followings. And they really do get to enjoy amazing careers. So don't give up, be humble, don't give up. Never stop learning, always hone your skills. Because the writer that you are today will not be the writer that you are 2 or 3 years ago, because you're going to develop, you're going to grow, you're going to have different experiences, you're going to have new experiences. I'm on this thing now that I don't want to write about love triangles. I've written my share of love triangles. Don't get it twisted. And a good love triangle is a great story in any way you produce it, in the film, television, whatever. But I'm at a place where I really enjoy conflict in a different way, internal, so like even with the Second Wives Club, relatable conflict, and you add the drama. But for example, Paige in this book, she gets up and she's looking at her body. She's not happy with her body. She's comparing it to other people. She's not interested in going and getting surgery, but it's starting to impact like how she feels and thinks about herself and all of this stuff. And women go through that stuff all the time. As you get older, things get lower and all kinds of stuff. And you start trying to reevaluate. She's looking at herself and she's like, when did I start wearing mom jeans? When did I stop looking cute in my jeans? Like, different things like that. So I love exploring real life concepts. I love exploring, I feel like my, especially in the books that I'm working on now and getting ready to produce, I feel like my characters are becoming more and more complex and flawed, but beautifully flawed. And just, so there's different things that interest me now than what interested me 10 years ago. So allow yourself to breathe and grow and develop as a writer, and be okay with how you evolve and who you are, but never stop honing your skill. Like always take a class, take some, I try to get my professional development writing from, conferences. I haven't been to a conference in a year at this point, but from my conferences, from, being part of writer communities. I'm a member of like AWP and different things like that. So never stop growing and developing. Always be humble. Never give up. And if you love it, just keep doing. Like, don't stop doing it because, I feel like, if I never got another book deal, it'll not stop me from writing. This guy told the story. He asked this guy, how do you get up and run every day? He was like, you get up and you run every single day, at a certain time. Like, how do you do that? Like, I'm trying to get on the exercise regimen and I can't seem to keep it together. And the guy said, I run because I'm a runner. Runners run. I write because I'm a writer and writers write. So book deal or not, whatever or not, I'm always going to write.
Well, I'm going to put all that in the description. Be humble, don't give up, never stop learning, allow yourself to grow and just keep doing it. Because that's the thing. I was talking with some friends just this morning before we started this conversation, and we were talking about some people who are in the indie game who, they do give up because, they kind of have that mindset of, if you put it out there, they will come. And they think that the days are going to be thousands upon thousands upon thousands, and that there's just going to be kind of like this magical thing that's going to happen. There's going to be gobs of dollars just falling into your lap. It's work, and a lot of people, they give up on themselves or they give up on it because, they did not realize that it would be work. And so I love this. So I will most definitely put this in there. Can you tell us what AWP stands for?
Association of Writers Programs.
Okay.
Writing programs. So there's so many sides to this publishing industry. AWP, a lot of the members of AWP are through the MFA programs. They do they do conferences and stuff like that. They are affiliated with a lot of the MFA programs across the country. I found out about my program, the MFA program that I ended up choosing at an AWP conference. The focus is very different. It's not about commercial fiction. It's kind of more scholarly. It's a lot of literary writers there. It's a lot of poetry. But it really is deep on critique and the craft of writing and writing programs. So,
all right, because I was like, can definitely put a link in the description to that too. All right, so before we close out, I just wanted to ask if you could tell us a little bit more about Second Wives, because that's your most recent release,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So if you could tell us a little bit more about that one and where we can find that so we can all purchase. And then if you can tell us where we can find you, because we know that you have more than one name, so where we can find you on social media, how do we get in contact and just learn more about you and all your mini selves and your books that you have out there.
Many cells. All my cells. So you can find my cells. So we'll start with Second Wives Club. I'm very excited about this book. And like I said, it's different from one I've written before. And it was inspired by an article that talked about the fact that 60% of American households were blended families. So like gone are the days of organic blend. I'm from an organic family. My mom, my dad had 6 kids, and all 6 of us belong to my mom and dad. But when I look at my siblings, none of us are organic families. Like I have a stepson, they have, so whether it's previous marriages or just children outside of the current marriages, either before or after or whatever. And, it's like, you've got, our kids have like 3 grandparents because, they got the mother and the parents of their parents, and then the parents of the step parents, and they celebrate Christmas at 3 different houses. It's just this whole blended family situation. And so I wanted to explore that in different ways that I've seen some blended families work. Some blends work well, and some blends are like oil and water. So in this particular book, there's 3 couples, and they all have very specific different types of blends. They actually meet through an organization called the Brimming Nest. Instead of the Empty Nest, it's the Brimming Nest. And it's an organization dedicated to helping families become winning blends. So they do all kinds of family things together, and have events. And some of the women are a part of the organization, and they help to like plan events for families and things like that. And one of the couples, she and her husband, so each of the women are their husband's second wife, and the dynamic comes into play with the previous families, mother-in-laws and wives and children. And in one situation, in Carrie's situation, she and her ex, her husband's ex, they're actually pretty close. They vacation together, they take care and watch out each other's kids, they are participating in the same committees at the Winning Blends, organization or whatever, and they're really good. They're a really good blend. It kind of reminds you of like the Will and Jada with their ex, and everybody just gets along and all this great stuff until something tragic happens, and then people start questioning what's really going on. Blend number 2, Paige and her husband, they are soulmates. They really do belong together, and it would be so much easier for them to have a blissful marriage if it wasn't for that meddling ex-wife of his who will not get out of the picture, who feels entitled because she was wife number 1, who feels like she can just show up to stuff because her daughter is there. So, she's the type of woman where she'll get on the phone with her daughter and like, where are you guys at? Oh, we're at grandma's house, and Auntie so-and-so's having dinner for grandma. And she'll show up because it was her grandmother, it was her mother-in-law first. So she feels entitled, and and it's hard for him to put her in his place because he doesn't want to lose his daughter. He does, and that's the threat. And that happens. It happens. People use their kids as pawns, hang them over their heads. If you don't do what I want you to do, you're never going to see your daughter again. So he's kind of caught up in that mix. And at the same time, the new wife is like, listen, dude, I want to see how long you're going to try to please 2 women. Let's see how well this works for you.
And that makes it sound so interesting because I tell you, oh my goodness, it's like as you were talking about those 2 families, I'm a woman who is single, never been married, and I don't have kids, but I have dated men with children. I've dated men with ex-wives. That second couple made me cringe a little bit. It brought back feelings.
Yes, girl, yes.
It brought back some emotions I had to hide as you were.
I got a couple of emails like that. Like one person literally said to me, like, why won't he listen? She was like, oh my God, he reminds me of my ex. I was like, okay.
It puts that woman in such a weird position because you can't come between someone and their child, and that people have to walk a fine line, but it does put you in such a bad place.
Even the family, puts the family in a bad place. How awkward is it that you having an event for your mom, right? And your brother is there with his wife, and the ex walks through the door. I'm like, who invited her?
Yeah. Why?
There's about to be some tension. You know something's about to go down.
Something's gonna happen, and but it's it's such bad energy.
Yeah, some business is about to go down, and it's tension for everybody involved.
Now that does sound like a reality TV show, Renee. That makes me. I want to know who's gonna flip the table over, who's gonna snatch off somebody's wig. You got me. Okay.
The last couple.
Tell me.
The new wife is half the old wife's age. She's a couple of years older than his daughter.
You can't do that one. See, because we just talked about how your first couple, how women look at themselves and be like, what's happening? Why am I wearing mom's jeans?
Right.
Now the next couple has to deal with the person, half the person. See, that's the problem.
But these are real issues. These are real
issues. And I'm gonna tell, like I tell people every day, because I'm my friends and I, we talk about these kinds of things because this is a real reality. But we talk about these things all the time, because women, we do judge ourselves so much by the next woman.
So harshly.
We are so harsh on ourselves, and and age and body type, shape.
Comparison is like, what do they call it? Comparison is a form of self-hate.
Oh, yes. You know what? I have heard something like that before, and I so believe it. It's like, we all think about like the negative parts versus the positive things about ourselves. So what do you do if your man's new woman is half your age?
His kids, he has a twin. He's a set of twins. And his twins are just a few years younger than the new wife.
Oh, see, this whole book is messy. See, I see what, I see.
Yeah. And she actually refers to them as the evil twins.
Oh, see. All right. You got us all in. So now everybody's going to go and check this out. Because I saw a few people had held I think one of the posts that I saw when I was doing research for this interview, someone had recently held a book club for you for the Second Wives. Yeah. And it's just, so now you're going to get us all out there trying to check out Second Wives. Okay.
That's what I'm supposed to do. That's supposed to work.
That's how it's supposed to work. You are exactly right. All right. So tell us, where can we get it? Is it available everywhere, or do we just?
So with books, you could definitely get it off online. Most people are sitting at home and not really going out. Mm-hmm. A lot of the bookstores are not open, so you can definitely order it at Amazon. It's available through ebook, through Kindle. Mm-hmm. It's available as a book. You can order the book. It's in the system, so if you go to a store and they don't have it, you can always ask for it, and they'll look it up, and you can get it that way.
It is about an ebook reader right now for me. Everything, and even like on nights when because like I said, it's just so crazy out there. You just kind of want to shut your television off.
Exactly.
I pick up my Kindle and it was like, oh, Amazon recommends. It's like, okay, click. I was like,
adding to that TBR, right?
Yeah, it's just like.
If you like this, you'll probably like this. I'm like, I do like that.
I do like it. I won't read it for a year, but I do like it. Thank you. So what's happening with Nikki? What do you have coming out with Nikki? Anything?
Nikki's next book is called Intimate Negotiations.
Okay.
Coming out on the Desire line. Yeah. It's coming out under Harlequin Desire. Mm-hmm. And that will be out in early spring of 2021.
All right, that sounds super sexy. Okay.
It's really sexy.
The intimate, what again? Intimate
negotiations. Right. It's about a corporate affair.
It sounds like intimate negotiations. All right, we write that one down. All right.
Books coming out next year, and then later this year, I have my first nonfiction book, which is called The Dream Journey: Spiritual Guide for Professionalizing Your Passion. So I do a lot of talking, a lot of speaking, motivational speaking, women and empowerment and all of that stuff. And it's also part of the work that I do with Girls Inc. Mm-hmm. And I've always been adamant about helping people find their passion and pursue that. I asked God a long time ago, like, I don't want to just work. I want to do something I'm passionate about. I want to do something I love. And I want to get paid for it. So when I discovered my passions, I was on a mission to get paid for them. And so I actually entered a whole phase in my life where I had to make very intentional decisions to be able to transition to a lifestyle where I'm able to now get up every single day and do the two things that I love the most: work with youth and write. So it really is about taking your passions and finding ways to professionalize it so that you can live for a living instead of just work for a living.
I've met a lot of people recently who've been doing life coach, career coach type of work, motivational speaking. And I just think it's such an interesting thing to do right now, because I think that there's so much going on that, I just think it's some very positive work, and congratulations on that. Congratulations on that. So tell us, where can we find you? Where can we find out more about Nikki? Where can we find out more about Renee? Where do we find you on social media? How do we connect?
Got it. So I'll start with Nikki Knight. So nikkiknight.com, NICKINIGHT. Nikki is also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So it's either the website or social media. And then myself, Renee Daniel Flagler. You can visit reneedanielflagler.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So I'm all over social media, running my mouth. Sometimes it's a little trouble.
Yeah, no, like all of us, we're all over social media. This is how we make this game work.
We do it.
All right.
Newsletters for both. So if you want to join the newsletters, if you go to the website, there's a link that says join my newsletter. Put your email in there, and you can keep updates. I don't spam. I don't send stuff every month. I send stuff when when there's something going on.
Awesome. Yeah. And you know what? I just wanna take a moment to say another thank you, because, like I said, guys, I made a wish list. I really did. And I know people are like, when you start new ventures, you try to figure out if it's something, one, that you can be consistent with, and if you think there will be enough interest in it, and, will you have enough support to make it really work? And so when you put together your wish list and you're like, you get some no's, you get people who are like, oh, I don't have time for this. But, I never forgot when I met you at that event. And I swear, guys, I'm gonna find my picture. It's somewhere. It's probably on this computer somewhere. I don't know where. I'm gonna find it, and I'm gonna post it in this if I can find that picture. But I truly never forgot, meeting you and having those conversations, and just talking about the fact that, if we're going to be about this, that we do all these things that you said here, humble, don't give up, never stop learning, allow yourself to grow, keep doing it. I mean, this really is reminiscent of the conversation that I had with you all those years ago. And it really did impact me personally, because I'm still here, I'm still in the game, and I'm still trying. And I really want to say thank you, because that conversation meant a lot to me. And I know you've had so many of them, but thank you so much. You are definitely
with me, though. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, you are definitely, I know you already know this because people tell you probably all the time, but you definitely impacted, me, because I really am still here and still trying to learn, so I hope that you, continue to bless people with, reaching out and speaking and doing this, because it's definitely been great for me to have that opportunity to talk to you. So thank you so much for joining me, Renee.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed my time with you too.
Thank you. And to everybody out there in YouTube world and podcast land, thank you guys. Forgive me for my hair. I really don't know what's going on with it today. This is a bad day in Memphis weather and my hair is tripping. But thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for watching this episode. Thank you for listening. And, please leave a comment, for Renee, and let her know if you'd be interested in some classes, what kind of classes you would be interested in, and make sure that you guys like, comment, share, and all those good things. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for joining me.